How's it going, internet? And a happy December to you. You like my new holiday lights that I hung up on the webcam to stay festive? I just watched a video by the main man Sway discussing kind of like his preferences as far as Tekken 7 redesigns go and how the characters were customized for that, and figured it'd be a fun idea to do it for Mortal Kombat myself. My mic is so loud right now. And kind of go over who has the best design. I'm super into graphic design, and I'm very meticulous and particular about how I like things to look. So I thought it'd be a fun experiment for me to take that same kind of concept and bring it over to Mortal Kombat 11, especially since main man doesn't play Mortal Kombat, so he'll never make this video. So I figured, why couldn't I do it? So you see, I've got the tier chart set up here on Cafe. Didn't even know this site existed, but we have it set up basically with two different parameters, tiered from top to bottom, who has the best in all overall, who has the best or worst overall design based on just their main costume that they have in the game, which means if they were brought in the game as a Revenant, that's how I'm judging it. And then we're going to move them left and right on the x-axis, depending on how I feel their gear lets you kind of optimize that. So even if their original costume, let's say, is horribly tiered, maybe it'll be a horribly tiered costume that's pushed all the way to the right, because outside of the base costume you have great options. So we're just going to go through the list, figure out at least where I personally feel people stand as far as their designs in Mortal Kombat 11 go, and then I'd be more than happy to see more videos on it or hear your opinions in the comments, letting me know what you think. And you can tell me all about how much of a dumbass you think I am for the opinions that I have, but that's the whole point of the video, you know? So let's cut to the chase and get started. First off, we have Kabal, who I'm going to put right here, immediately in middle to lower base guy. I'm not I've never been a big Kabal fan. I think my favorite design from him was Mortal Kombat 9. I like the cop look with the mask. For some reason it felt cooler to me, and his look in MK11 especially. I'm gonna be a little biased too because I'm not a fan of Revenant skins, you know. So to that same point, Kung Lao is gonna go right here. Now here's the thing, when you talk about, I just remember the second axis for Kabal that I never got to. His base costume's horrible, but when you get into some of his customization options, it does let you fix it a little bit. First of all, because you can make him human. That's going to be a trait with all of the Revenants. When you make them human, they just look better. But Kabal also, he's got different coats, different tank tops, different hook swords. I personally use Movados for him because I was a big Movado fan and Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, you know? And so that kind of, you know, he has a Daft Punk looking mask. You know, obviously I don't remember what all the gear is called. It would be ridiculous to remember the name of every single piece of gear in the game. But that mask looks incredible on him. You know, we got the horror costumes recently, and he got basically a Jason outfit, which is okay. But when you get into some of his gear options, it does let you fix it. Kung Lao, however, design is pretty stale, and his customization is pretty stale. The only reason I'm not putting him lower is because it would block the words that say worst design. How far can I put him on? Let's put him right here for now, because there's no saving this man's appearance in the game. You know, of course, you run into the issue when you're designing characters. You want them to be recognizable to people who like them. So you want to see Kung Lao and know it's Kung Lao. But outside of just knowing that it's Kung Lao because of the hat and making him look a little different so you don't think his silhouette is Raiden, who's the only other person with a hat, is boring. When you change him to look like a human, it's boring. His casual costume, which is the one I use because it's the best one he has, is boring. So actually, you know, I'm not the best at math. So he's going to go all the way over here. Worst gear, worst design. So maybe we can even keep him here, but we'll put him a little lower than the chart allows. Sub-Zero is a hard one because I feel like his design would have been cooler to me if he had more of his Mortal Kombat Deception Shredder look. I know I'm not the only one who thinks that was one of his cooler, more interesting designs, because no one else in the cast ever really had it in any other Mortal Kombat game. This one, it's basically the Deception costume, but toned down. So I am a fan of it. I do think it's a solid design. His gear doesn't seem to do much for it though, because all of his gear is basically just recolors of, you know, you can change his ice axe to look a couple of different ways, but it generally looks the same. You can change his daggers on his hip, which generally look the same. His different color options are cool, but they're just different color options. And he has a couple of masks that are interesting. So, but they don't seem to do much for really changing his whole complete look. Jade, of course, based on her base costume, she's a revenant, so, you know. But she would be more neutral. I definitely think her revenant look is better looking than Cabal's. Debate me on it all you want, you know. However, I do think her gear does a great job of fixing it, specifically due to the recolors, like the pink option. And of course, I'm also, if I didn't mention this before, because I'm sure I didn't, but you can tell through the context of me talking, I'm considering the DLC skins that have come out so far up to this date in this. And the witch costume for her is incredible. That alone is going to push her. I don't know if she has the best customization options, but she's definitely up there. Aaron, his design is generally boring and stale. It was better in Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11's design. It's just a more boring version of Mortal Kombat X design. He doesn't really have DLC skin options. If you got his skins in the Combat League season, like the Season of Blood is actually like a decent one, so I might bump him up a bit this way for that. And the ability that the fact that you can give him, you have the ability to give him basically the GoldenEye revolver, depending on the skins that you use. But it's a cowboy ninja, and then they didn't do much with it, at least as far as aesthetically. Scorpion is a hard one, because Scorpion's Mortal Kombat 11 design, he always gets touched up, you know, being the poster boy. He's almost like right in terms with Sub-Zero, but I do think his gear options are like a little bit, of course I can't put him on top, can I? But he's like right about here with Sub-Zero. His gear doesn't do too much for him. He has like some really cool gear. Like the actual Scorpion spear is awesome. But the customization options where you can just see his ponytail now, I don't really care, you know? For that, I'd just rather have the Hanzo skin that you had in MKX. Would have been way better. Of course, you can make him faceless like that, so you know what? Yeah, we'll push him over a little bit. His gear does do a better job of making him look cooler than Sub-Zero's does. Cetrion this is going to be the decider as to how much you think my opinion is valid at this point, because Cetrion's design I'm actually a fan of, even though I know everybody just feels like she's an Injustice character that got brought into Mortal Kombat 11. I like the introduction of new characters, especially when I feel like they bring something different and new that we haven't seen. And elemental control to the level of which she has it is great and is well represented in her skin. So I think she actually has a really good design for what she is. And I think her gear options do actually a great job. She's gonna be one of the more favored ones for me right now, because I'm trying to think. You can change the color. You can she has like this glitter stone one, you know, that's great. She's gonna go in a top spot for me. Frost, I think, has a good and interesting design. She has skins that are relatively, I'm trying to think about it now. She has skins that are relatively stale, and only the one that you get from training mode I actually like. But her gear does nothing. So her gear is abysmal, actually. It does like nothing to really change her look, which you seem to run into anytime you have like a Chronica assisted cyber built body or something. To, you know, anything that's affected by the sands of time is also affected by having the fashion sense of the fucking prehistoric era, you know. So she has a good design, but her gear is horrible. Whereas Baraka has a pretty neutral design, but his gear really lets you get funky with him. He was one of the best. He was the first main I had in the game, given that I started playing in the beta when he was one of the 5 characters available then. I think it was, what, him, Jade, Cabal, Scorpion. Was it just the 4 of them? Was it just Baraka, Jade, Cabal, Scorpion? I'm trying to look around and see who else could have been in the beta that I'm forgetting. No, I think it was just the 4 of them. Oh, and Scarlet. So it was 5. His gear options are incredible. You can give him like a Shredder helmet that, of course, Sub-Zero didn't get. His base design is just Baraka. It's just, I actually I'll have to move them up by default so you can see the chart later when I take a nice picture of it for Twitter. But yeah, his base design is whatever, but his gear options are incredible. So, you know, by default, I'll push these 2 up a little higher. Raiden, boring, and Gear, boring. Stale and stale. It does, like, really nothing to change him. It's hard too, given, especially I think with Sub-Zero, this point would be pretty valid too. Their designs and their customization options in Injustice 2 were so amazing. Where like Sub-Zero to have his cryo arms, to get like masked Raiden in Injustice. I don't know how big of a fan I was of him having the big open nipple chest costume, but he had you could change the colors of his lightning effects and like his artifacts. When it was great in Injustice 2 and in Mortal Kombat, you know, I was hoping some of that would carry over. One of the big reasons I was excited at the thought of customization options for Mortal Kombat was because I was basing it off of how great of a job I felt like they did in Injustice 2. But with Raiden, it did not carry over. His evil Raiden design is the same, and his, you know, general good guy design is the same. Sure, like playing with purple Raiden is a little bit cool, but recolors can only do so much. Shao Kahn, the big kitty Kahn the big kitty Kahn would be Kotal, but the big bad boy Shao. His general design I actually like more in this game. I think it's a good design. His customization options are okay. So I'm going to slightly put him towards this way, but we're going to leave him there. Devora is a hard one for me because I generally am. I think she has an interesting design. It hasn't changed much since Mortal Kombat X for sure. She has some customization options that are cool, but she's gonna go here. She's gonna chill under the man to which she used to serve, or at least pretend to serve. Garrus, amazing. Now, as a character, I love him, but as a design, he's gonna go like here. He's gonna go next to Raiden. Actually, I don't like his design that much. It feels like a weird ripoff of. I mean, you could make the point that Cetrion's design is kind of like a Poison Ivy ripoff, but I just felt like it was better done as far as making her feel like a different character. Garrus, as far as how he plays and his, you know, the effect he has on the story, even though you don't get to see him win a lot of fights unless he's just beating up jobbers for the sake of like looking intimidating, but he's brought new mechanics to the game that are interesting. Everything about Garrus I love except for the way he looks. It's like just this weird Green Lantern-ish skin. His customization options just make him look more Green Lantern-ish with the mask. The colors are pretty boring, and his gear doesn't do much at all to change it aside from giving him like a bubblegum fist. You don't really get to do much with it. Kano is another one of these characters that is, his design is generally okay, but his gear is fucking amazing, and so he's gonna go right here next to Baraka. Just his whole like retro look, the different like tank tops, bald Kano, mustache Kano, clean shaven Kano, classic Kano. You know, as far as like those skins, amazing. The knife is like interesting to change or whatever. You get to change the eye. His gear does a great job of letting you really get it. I mean, his cyborg skin is like a toss up. I think it's okay. I know friends of mine who are like a big fan of the cyborg skin, and I have friends of mine who hate the cyborg skin. All of those friends that I'm talking about are Kano main, so they're very passionate about how he looks in the game. I think the gear does a great job as to really letting you make him your Kano, which is what you want with these customization options. When you get into Jax's new design I think is great, but I think his gear is super boring. The different customizations for the arms all feel like metal arms. The only one that's ever felt worth my time to have on him is the classic arms. You know, young and old Jax are just Jax with a beard or Jax without a beard. Literally any of the skins that you try to mess around with in customization are just, here's a skin with him with a beard, here's the same skin without the beard. So it's cool to have that option. I just make his beard an extra 4th gear piece slot then. Cassie, at design, at gear. She can chill right here next to Shao. As far as how she looks, it's the same. I do like the fact that she got the classic skin. That's the skin I'm using for her. And the Harley skin, I guess, would be like a decent point too. So maybe we can shove her a little close to Shao, which he would like because he wanted her as a concubine anyway. So he can be a little happy over that. Kotal's design, I like. His gear is what? His totems, his sword, and his hook swords, which are okay. Do I think his design is cooler than Sub's? Definitely, I do. This is the perfect spot for him. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. I put him where I think he belongs. Scarlet's redesign, I love. Scarlet's gear is kind of boring. It's another case of just recolors and, you know, maskless Scarlet, aside from the fact that she gives me a boner, you know, is okay. Sonya Blade's design is horribly boring. Her gear is pretty fun though, as far as the different drones. The hats are some of the other skins are like better. Actually, are they? She's like right at Cabal's. She has good gear, but I don't feel like it does much to change her. Johnny Cage retro design, well, his classic design, boring. His gear amazing. So here next to Kano, you can't block where it says best gear or people won't be able to see. Noob Saibot, amazing design, amazing customization options. He can hang up here with Cetrion. Actually, do I feel like his customization options are cooler than Cetrion's? Off his base design, having the hook sword in his back was an awesome thing to do. It added so much character to someone who ideally doesn't get much character. Given that he's the original Sub-Zero, he tends to get overlooked in Mortal Kombat plots a lot as just, here's another cool looking bad guy for you to beat up so you know how much of a hero you are, because he should be so threatening even though he never wins a fight in the story ever in his life. But his design is amazing. And I'm not a Noob Saibot player, but I've always been a fan of his design. I do feel like they changed it just enough without overdoing it, because there is a tendency from some fighting games when they want to bring characters back with a redesign where they tend to overdo it, and they didn't. They did a good job with him. Collector, let's do this real quick. Let me get this out the way so people in the Discord can get upset. Can we put him lower than Kung Lao? You know, Kung Lao gets to go here because I just realized he's not Collector. I hate his design. I do. Now, there's a fair point to be made, and this is the part of the video where I got to remind you, this is my personal opinion. I've had a good friend of mine explain to me the reason that he's also a Collector man. The reason he's such a fan of Collector is because he feels like he's the most Mortal Kombat looking character out of the ones that have gotten introduced. I feel like that's a great point. Okay, as far as like the Mortal Kombat universe and the different things you see, he does very much look like he belongs in the Mortal Kombat universe. Does not mean I'm a fan of how he looks though, and his gear doesn't really change how he looks. Except for he's basically in a diaper, or he's in a diaper with a poncho. The different bolas are boring. It's cool that he has 4 arms. I'll bump him up that much for having 2 extra. Those 2 extra arms get him up 2 more millimeters on the board. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I do enjoy the way he plays. I like his play style. I like what he brings to the table as far as mechanics. He's another one of those characters that like what he brings to the mechanics of the game, but I don't enjoy how he looks. And this is just a tier list based on how he looks. If we want to go over a tier list of who has the most interesting gameplay or just tiers in general, who I think is like strongest in my own personal opinion, the meta, different videos for another time, but that's where he belongs for sure. Katana, her design, good. Her gear, okay. Yeah, she could nestle in here. That's fine. Jackie, I like the redesign. Now, I'm a Jackie main, so I'm trying to not include my bias here. Her gear doesn't do much. She's kind of in the same league as Cassie. I'll switch her with Cassie, and that's how I'll get to include my bias. So I'll get her in there, and then Cassie will be here. but they generally have the same, the combat kids have pretty boring looks because they just don't want them to look like their parents. They want them to be distinctive. Jackie's gear is a little better than Cassie's, I'm thinking, as far as the dresses. But it's all relatively, she's either in combat gear or she's at a wedding. Or she's going to prom, basically. A lot of her outfits are just she's going to prom. Now, I like it because I'm a Jackie main, but I like it because I'm a Jackie main. Generally, it's not that good of a design. Liu Kang's design is okay. His gear is pretty ass too. Why Liu Kang and Raiden? Does Raiden have better gear than Liu Kang? I think so, at least with the different staffs. Raiden did get fucked over with DLC gear. Shang's design. I mean, let's talk about how good it is off of base design. The gauntlets with the little snake hands, great, but his gear, not the best. So as much as I love his design, his gear doesn't really, definitely, like, okay, having movie Shang is pretty cool, but nostalgia aside, the design is here. And Jax would be here. And that's what I think about that. Sindel's new design as a Revenant, it's actually not bad, but her gear is like pretty boring too. Good design, not the best gear. So she can hide in the shadows there, since the picture makes it seem like she wants to do that anyway. Spawn, we've only seen one screenshot of, and he looks like Spawn. So you know what? Maybe we'll come back and revisit this. He's gonna be here for now, and if I can come up with a decision on him, I don't know. Nightwolf's redesign, I like his gear. I like. He's just gonna be here chilling behind Jade like a pervert. Do I think he has better gear than Scorpion? I don't. Okay, how is his design? I like the face paint, but he looks like Nightwolf. They didn't do much. You know what? He'll be chilling in here. I'll just get him down to where you can see his eyes. That's where I feel like he belongs. Joker, we've just seen one screenshot of too, so here's that. Terminator, boring. Boring design. It looks like, it's amazing how much it looks like Arnold, but the design is boring and the gear sucks. So that's okay. So now we only have these two. How much time did we spend? 22 minutes. Okay, we'll do it based off of what I've seen of these two so far. If we're basing Joker off of just being Joker in this picture, horrible. But luckily for him, I'm doing this video after the reveal trailer came out at the Game Awards, and we saw how he looks now, and he looks, so I can only go based off design. We'll do a little pervert thing with him too. And Spawn, actually we go here. He looks like Spawn. I'm not a Spawn fan, and so I can't really say much about it. But this is, yeah, I think this looks like a decent chart to me of where everybody would go. Maybe not having best gear and worst gear, I would shift them around a bit, but this is generally where I feel like people would be. So I don't know. You guys let me know in the chat. I thought this was an interesting thought experiment to go through. I'm going to post this picture on Twitter later. So if you can either take a screenshot of it now or check on Twitter or in my Discord to see the full screenshot of this. Actually, maybe I should, you know what? Yeah, I'll post it on Twitter. So the link for that tweet will be in the description below. Let me know what you guys think. As far as design goes, are there other fighting games where you'd want me to look at the roster and see what I think about them based on their designs? Even if I don't play the game, we could just go based off of first impressions. It's not that hard to do. But I appreciate you guys sticking through this. For those of you that did, I'm definitely planning on dropping a lot more YouTube videos soon. Like, being a content creator is a grind, and I'm never going to stop saying it. But thank you for everybody who stopped in. If you want to see some Mortal Kombat content as far as tips, tricks, and guides, feel free to check out my Mortal Kombat playlist. That'll be in the video somewhere when I make the end card. And if you'd like to join Mortal Kombat tournaments that I host on stream every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the link with all that information will be in the description below too. Anyways, guys, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.